Hey, in this video, I'm going to be talking about how to overcome anxiety in fearful situations. I'm Michael Giovanni from Live in Your Power Now. Now, anxiety is a big topic because through my life, I went through a lot of challenges when it came to anxiety, and this one story comes to mind. In this video, I'm going to be showing you some strategies of how to overcome the anxiety. And not just the strategies, I'm going to be showing you how specifically how anxiety functions too. So back to this story. So it was around 9 years ago, and I was in this training. Okay, it was in this training to become a trainer. And one of the exercises was we had to stand up in front of this little audience. And, there was 5 of us in the room. Okay, so I had 4 people sitting across, and we had this little room barricaded around, like partitioned around, and it was about 2 meters by 2 meters. It was so small, it was tiny. And there was 4 people sitting across, all sitting all like this, all tight together. And I had out on the outside of it, there was a person there assessing to see if I was going to be all right. I'm going to be all right is my stance. And all I had to do was I had to stand up there in front of these 4 people, and we were literally about 1.5 meters away. And I had to stand up there for 3 minutes. And all I had to do was just look at them. And I had to look at them just in their eyes, every single one. And I noticed within seconds, what started to happen is I couldn't really breathe. And my heart started beating faster and faster. And then obsessively, I started sweating. And I could feel in that minute that I was turning into a tomato. And you probably know what I'm talking about if you've experienced something like that before. And in that moment, like me just sweating and just being red, like I felt really embarrassed. I felt embarrassed. And what happened is I still stayed there for the 3 minutes. I still stayed there, and while everyone was looking at me, and I was just sweating. And what I noticed after, I asked myself some questions. I was thinking, what was it? What happened? Like, what could happen? And what I noticed was, this is an important part when it comes to anxiety and fear. In that moment, I was judging myself so much. I was judging myself because, I was training to train people on human behavior. And I have studied and researched so much around, human behavior and the psychology and the mindset and how we work and energy. And I was here getting an attack. And in that moment, I judged myself because I was having an expectation that I shouldn't have gone through that, and I should have, really got out of that quicker than what I thought. And what I realized was in that judgment itself, it was causing the emotion and that anxiety to expand and accelerate. So many people out there take on these labels, and we judge ourselves and we have these expectations because sometimes if we get anxious, we might feel like we shouldn't get anxious and we shouldn't get fearful because our friend doesn't, and while our friends don't, our brother and sister don't, or our parents don't, and we compare ourselves to how we should be and the idea of how we should be. And sometimes what they can do is really accelerate, as I mentioned, the emotion and the internal drama, what's going on in that moment. Because if there was no expectation whatsoever and no judgment whatsoever, would it really be a problem? Because sometimes they say you can actually change the context and reframe the context of what you're experiencing. And I've tried this many times before. Because now in my current day, I'm a public speaker, I've spoken to, thousands of people over time, and, I get crowds of hundreds. So, now where I am right now is like I still get those moments that might be if I'm talking to an audience, and it could be a small audience that, it's a last minute thing, and I'll get those feelings. But the difference is if I were to get those feelings is I'll tell my body that that's excitement. And even though my body is telling me, no, that's not good, it's not safe, I'm getting this panic, but I'll say, no, it's excitement, and I'm excited to do this. And then it would just lower and it'll go away. So sometimes we have to remove the judgment. One of the first things I do with a client, when someone comes to me in my practice and they say to me, hey, Michael, I've got anxiety. I've been told I've got anxiety and I've got this anxiety. And, and I hear, what I'm hearing is, geez, this person's really identifying under that label. And if you really knew, some of you might know, you're so much bigger and greater than that label. Like if you really chunk down to the singularity point, you're a spirit, you're a soul. Secondary to that, you're human. And third to that, you have emotions. So And when we got those judgments are playing in those emotions. That's what's creating them. And the first thing I will do is get them to see that the symptoms that they're going through are coming from them, and show them how they're creating them and how they can change them. Because a lot of times we can put these labels in anxiety. And if we label something and we box it, sometimes we don't see the opportunity for growth. Because we're identifying and labeling ourselves and affirming and confirming who we specifically are. And if you're confirming who you are, well, then that's attached to your story. And if it's attached to your story, it's going to become habitual. And what I mean by that, there might be an event that's coming up, or some type of party, or some type of social setting. You might be getting that feeling, and you already know you go to that setting and you go into that event that you're going to get those feelings, and you're going to get anxious, because this part here and this story of what you're identified with already knows that. And if you already know that, you already know that, because everything that we do starts with a picture in the mind. It must start with a picture first in the mind. And if the picture that you've got before the event has even taken place, the probability of that happening is going to be very high. So this is a strategy that you could implement into your life to help. So number one, let's try and work out how we could change the picture. Because we all know that anxiety comes from future setting. We're future pacing. We're seeing something in the future. We're fearing it. And sometimes we're triggering and anchoring an emotion from the past. And what we're doing, we're jumping from future, past. And what we essentially are not doing, we're not being here in the moment with ourselves. So when we look at that in the moment and we see that that might be anxious, this is what I want you to do. I want you for a moment, I want you to just take notice of you, who you are right now. And give yourself some credit, because you're the person that got yourself here up until this point right now. You're the person that got through all those challenges, and you've been through a few challenges, and you've always been all right because you've always trusted yourself to get yourself to this point. So I want you first to just give yourself acknowledgement for where you are right now and all you've done for yourself up to this point. Next, what I want you to do, and if you want to close your eyes through this process, I know it sounds a bit weird, but if you want to, you get the most out of it. And I want you now just to take notice. I want you to go out into the future. And I want you to go out into the future. I want you to find and anchor the greatest version of yourself. And this version of yourself, he or she is the person that doesn't have anxiety. That doesn't exist. She or he is calm, relaxed, certain, confident. You know, they're fulfilled, they're successful in all the versions and areas that they desire to be. And when you go and see this person, this version, I want you to take notice. I want you to take notice that what it feels like to be them, what it looks like to be them, like what are they doing, how are they standing, what is it about them that they're functioning like that, they don't experience the same thing that you experienced over here in that other part, in that other way. And as you're tuning into this part and seeing them and feeling them, I want you to really, really just tune in how it is to be them, how good it is and how calm it is. And I want you to ask yourself a question. I want you to ask them a question. Now, these questions that you ask your greater version of yourself have to be specific. So it might be for a specific event you've got coming up. And you ask this future self, you know, what would I have to do in order to feel calm at this event? And whatever this version of yourself says, this is for you to listen to. And I will tell you why. If you listen to that answer, you're going to become more of that version. See, for a long time, you've been identifying under this person. And this person here has a story. This person knows that she or he that gets anxious. And they know that when they go to that party, they're going to get anxious. So anytime they're asking a question, they're asking it to this self. And this self's given you an answer. And the answer it's given you is giving you the same biological response, same chemicals that are releasing through your brain, your body. And the same internal strategy is happening to give you the outer strategy. Now, it's worked for you up until this point, but from where you're going from here, and if you want to make some changes, it's not going to work anymore. So now we must get the future self and this greater version of yourself. And you start asking that person some questions. And you bring that version with you to these parties or to this event. And you're seeing what they do. And all you're really doing and all you're really going to come to is you're going to see that they are you. They are you, and you can become them. because all you have to really do is make a decision that which one you want to communicate to. Which one do you want to be getting the information from? So that's one strategy. It can be a lengthy strategy, but that's one. Another strategy can be when you're getting anxious or the symptoms of anxiety and you're undergoing that, that pressure that you've got going through your head and going through your body. See, unconsciously, you're strategically doing things in such a certain manner. What I mean by that, your posture is a certain way. Your breathing is in a certain ratio and even depth. You're thinking in a certain way. You're feeling a certain way. You might be standing in a different way. What I mean by that is the way you're feeling in that moment, you have a certain state of being. And that certain state of being, it's giving you the outcome that you're getting in that anxious state. So in order to change the state of being, we need to change the state. And in order to change the state, you need to change some physical things. And that could be as simple as you changing your physical posture. It could be changing your breath ratio. It's about taking those deep breaths in, activating your sympathetic nervous system. Because at that point, every time you're getting anxious, you're having ratio and depth breathing, that's short breaths, that's happening here at the chest. If you take your direction and you visualize whilst taking in those deep breaths through the nose down to the belly, you're changing the internal strategy of how you do the things you do in that moment. Another thing could be removing yourself from the certain scenario. Now, doing these kind of exercises will get you out of that state within 30 to 60 seconds. Okay? Now, I know when you're in that state, the last thing you want to do is get out of it because your feelings are telling you everything that's happening. But I want to let you in on something. Along the way, we've all been told, or we've grown this belief that every time we feel something bad, or we feel something good, it's right. Now, beyond those feelings, as I mentioned before, is a human. And beyond that human is a spirit. So sometimes we have to look beyond our feelings to be in that present point. Just because you're feeling it, that doesn't mean it's right, and it doesn't mean you have to do it. So challenge yourself to do some of those strategies and get yourself out of that state and feeling a lot better. Now, I hope you found value in this video. If you did, share it with a friend. I'm sure you've got someone out there that might want this information, that might, could find value from some of these strategies. So if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, subscribe now. See us on Facebook. We're always posting some information on there too. So thank you for listening. Love first, live second, and we're looking forward to speaking to you very soon.